Hello, friends. I'm not in San Francisco. I did live in the Bay Area for a while, and I love that bridge. And San Francisco used to be a beautiful place. um, Today's video is going to be on Ezra Eagle. I've had a lot of people uh, contact me and say, "Hey, what are your thoughts on Ezra Eagle now that we've had the 2020 election?" And So what I thought that I would do today is just take that vision and just go through it verse by verse and uh, tell you what I believe that that means, and in light of current events. Now, when we're talking about Ezra's Eagle, it's really important to understand the context in which I um, first understood this. I woke up one morning and I remember reading, I just had the strong impression about something that I had read years before, in the Apocrypha in Second Esdras, and it was this vision that I call Ezra's Eagle. And so that is really important to understand when it comes to Ezra's Eagle.
That the perspective that I first understood this was from the perspective of the house of Israel. Now, there's another component of this prophecy that's very important to understand, and it's it is talking about the United States of America and depicting the United States of America as an eagle. But more than anything, this vision, as we will get to it, is about secret combinations. It's about the whore of Babylon. Um, and that is a critical component to understand. And so, with this in mind, I wanted to read a couple of quotes and then jump right into Ezra's Eagle.
Ezra Taft Benson, when he was a prophet, spoke in October 1988 General Conference and gave an incredible talk called I Testify. And in that talk, he said this: I testify that wickedness is rapidly expanding in every segment of our society. It is more highly organized, more cleverly disguised, and more powerfully promoted than ever before. Secret combinations lusting for power, gain, and glory are flourishing. A secret combination that seeks to overthrow the freedom of all lands, nations, and countries is increasing its evil influence and control over America and the entire world. Okay, this secret combination that President Benson is talking about, and he should know because he was in a presidential cabinet for 8 years as an apostle of the Lord. He was the Secretary of Agriculture. Um, and he saw the formation of this whore of Babylon that was seeking to overthrow the freedom of all nations and people. Okay, this is the context of Ezra's Eagle. Now, I wanted to also read something that President Nelson said on this. So, in his talk, Becoming True Millennials, which he gave at BYU, Hawaii, he said this: around 41 BC, many Nephites joined the church, and the church prospered. But secret combinations also began to grow, and many of their cunning leaders hid among the people and were difficult to detect. As the people became more and more prideful, many of the Nephites made a mock of that which was sacred, and they denied the spirit of prophecy and of revelation. Those same threats are among us today. The somber reality is that there are servants of Satan embedded throughout society. So be very careful about whose counsel you follow. Now, this is really important as we're talking about Ezra's Eagle today, because many people look at this as a political um, prophecy, but it is not. It's not about President Trump and Biden. It's about a secret combination that is seeking to control all lands and people. And they do this from a seat of power within the United States of America. Now, one other passage I want to talk about before we jump into the prophecy of Ezra's Eagle is here in Revelation 17, first two verses of that chapter. Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgments of the great whore that sitteth upon the many waters. We're talking about the whore of Babylon, this secret combination. with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So we're talking about a global institution whereby the leaders of countries and powerful and influential people are being enriched by their association with this secret combination, this Whore of Babylon. This is what we are talking about in this prophecy that I refer to as Ezra's eagle. So let's jump right into the prophecy now. So this is coming from Second Esdras, chapter 11. Now it's important to understand that this is in the Apocrypha, and most people discount the Apocrypha for some reason. It's actually very valuable. It was in all of our Bibles up until the turn of the 20th century when the Church of England decided to take it out. But all of the pioneers crossed the plains with this in their Bibles. When George Washington placed his hand upon the Bible and was sworn in as the President of the United States, this was in the Bible that he put his hand on. The Pilgrims came across with this in their scriptures. So it's only recently that we've lost a general understanding of what's in the Apocrypha, but the early saints would have known this. So let's jump into this, and I'm going to go through verse by verse and just talk about it with you. And I want you to think about what I'm reading, and let's really try to base our understanding off of what Ezra saw. So verse 1, then saw I a dream, and behold, there came up from the sea an eagle, which had 12 feathered wings and 3 heads. And I saw, and behold, she spread her wings over all the earth, and all the winds of the air blew on her and were gathered together. And I beheld, and out of her feathers there grew other contrary feathers, and they became little feathers and small. So what Ezra is seeing here is a country that's represented by a massive eagle, and the scope and dominion of this country is global. It influences every other nation upon the earth. And we are told that this eagle has 12 regular feathers and 8 contrary feathers, so 20 feathers in total. Now, in the next chapter, Ezra has an angelic guide that describes what some of these things mean. And for sake of brevity, I'm just going to tell you what he said that this meant. So the feathers, he said, were consecutive leaders. And when you have regular feathers, those are leaders that served, a normal, they served all the time that they were supposed to in office. These shorter feathers, or contrary feathers, as Ezra calls them, well, they're cut short. Their administrations are not as long as they would have been had it not been for the intervention of the Whore of Babylon, the secret combinations of the last days. Okay, so as the vision continues, we'll talk more about these short feathers and the regular feathers. Okay, now in verse 4. But her heads were at rest. The head in the middle was greater than the others, yet it rested with the residue. Moreover, I beheld, and lo, the eagle flew with her feathers, and rained upon the earth and over all them that dwelt therein. And I saw all things under heaven were subject unto her, and no man spake against her, no, not one creature upon the earth. So again, this is symbolic that the United States of America is the superpower in the world, and that no other nation can dispute that fact, that America is the world's superpower. It doesn't mean that there aren't going to be other nations and other people that don't like this nation. That's never been the case. There's always been people, no matter what the nation, that have hated nations, whether that's Rome, whether that's Babylon, Persia, England, France. There's people that hate those countries because of personal reasons. But what this prophecy is saying is that even if people disagree with this country, they can't disagree with the power and authority that this country has over the world. Or they can disagree with that, but they can't dispute the fact that this nation does have power and control over the entire globe. Okay, now verse 7. And I beheld, and lo, the eagle rose upon her talons, and spake to her feathers, saying, watch not all at once, sleep every one in his own place, and watch by course, but let the heads be preserved for the last. And I beheld, and lo, the voice went out, not out of her heads, but out of the midst of her body. So, what are we talking about here? The heads of the eagle say to the feathers, serve one at a time in consecutive order. So, we're talking these 20 leaders of this country, and because we're talking about the United States of America, we're talking presidents. These presidents are consecutive. And we hear this note about this voice coming out of the body of the eagle. And this is significant. But before I elaborate more on that, let me just give you an overall preface of this. Well, this isn't my preface. This is the preface that Ezra's angelic guide gave him pertaining to this revelation, and it's meaningful. So let's consider that before we continue on this. This is what the angel explained to Ezra this dream. The context of this dream was, comfort me then, and show me, thy servant, the interpretation and plain difference of this fearful vision. As we get into this vision, you'll see there's some scary things that happen. That thou mayest perfectly comfort my soul, for thou hast judged me worthy to show me the last times. So Ezra realizes that what he's seen is going to take place in the latter days, okay, right before the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. And he, the angel, said unto me, Ezra, this is the interpretation of the vision. The eagle whom thou sawest come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel. Okay, this is critical to understand because Daniel and Ezra were contemporaries. They were both in Babylon during the time of captivity. So Ezekiel was there too. But Daniel saw all these visions of what was going to happen in the last days. He saw, he interpreted King Nebuchadnezzar's vision of the statue that had four component parts, remember? The head of gold, the chest of silver, and the torso of brass, and then you had the legs and feet of iron. Well, he also saw four kingdoms that he likened to different animals. And those four animals pertain to the four different in this amalgamation of alloys in this statue that King Nebuchadnezzar saw. And the fourth or last beast that he saw corresponds with the kingdom that would be present in the latter days. This, if you're likening it to the statue, it was the legs of iron, that the stone cut without hand rolled forth and broke. So what Ezra is seeing pertains to this fourth beast or this fourth kingdom, which would be the strongest kingdom the world had ever seen. So Ezra is receiving more information about this last great kingdom that Daniel didn't see. And it's to help us to understand the visions of Daniel even better. And then in 12, but it was not expounded unto Daniel, therefore I declare it now unto thee. So we need to understand that this corresponds with the visions of Daniel. Now let's jump into what this voice means that came from inside the eagle rather than from the eagle's heads. As for the voice which thou heardest speak, and that thou sawest, not to go out from the heads, but from the midst of the body thereof, this is the interpretation, that after the time of that kingdom there shall arise great strivings, and it shall stand in peril of failing, meaning this kingdom, the United States of America will stand at the point of failing. Nevertheless, it shall not then fall, but shall be restored again to its beginning. This should remind you of prophecy from Joseph Smith, and we'll come back to that at the end of this presentation and talk about that in a little more detail. But the voice coming from the body is a symbol that this nation is going through distress and is about to collapse because of the events of these 20 feathers. So let's continue. And I numbered her contrary feathers, and behold, there were 8 of them. And I looked, so there were, again, 12 regular feathers and 8 contrary or short feathers. And I looked, and behold, on the right side, there arose one feather and reigned over all the earth. So this is the first president of the United States. Presidents of the United States, one of their titles is leader of the free world. So we're talking about the first leader of the free world, not necessarily George Washington, but the first of this list of 20 consecutive leaders. And so it was that when he reigned, the end of it came, meaning the end of his term in office. And the place thereof appeared no more. So the next following stood up and reigned and had a great time. And now, when we're talking about a great time, we're not talking about this leader partied in office. We're talking, that was Bill Clinton. This guy reigned in his office for a very long time. And we get more details on that. It says, and so it was that when he reigned, the end of it came, and the place of it appeared no more. So that the next one stood up and reigned and had a great time. And it happened that when it reigned, the end of it came also, this one that ruled for a long time, like as the first, so that it appeared no more. Then came there a voice unto it, and said unto the second of these leaders, Hear thou that hast borne rule over the earth so long, meaning he served a long time compared to the other 19 feathers. This I say unto thee, before thou beginnest to appear no more, there shall none after thee attain unto thine time, neither unto the half thereof. Okay, so this is interesting. The angel is saying, hey, you served twice as long as anyone else. And by the end of your official term in office, no one else will ever be able to serve that long again. So let's look at, there's a key word in here that we need to understand, and that's the word unto. If you look in the Webster's 1828 dictionary, it defines unto as, let's look at the second line. It expresses no more than to. In other words, not to exceed. So what this prophecy is saying is, no one's going to exceed half of your time. So that's very interesting, because when you look at the presidents of the United States, there is only one president who has served for twice as long as, or has been elected to twice as many terms as any other president in the history of the country. And that was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was elected to 4 terms in office. And before the end of his 4th term in office, the 22nd Amendment was passed, which limited all future presidents to 2 terms in office. So Ezra is definitely seeing the United States of America here. So now we understand that if this leader, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was the second leader, then the first leader has to be Herbert Hoover. Now, the question you might be asking is, why start this list with Herbert Hoover? That's kind of strange, and that gets to the whole heart of what this prophecy is really about. It's not about presidents of the United States as much as it's about the whore of Babylon that's controlling the activities within the United States. And Herbert Hoover is the first president in this series because he was one of the founding members of an organization that Ezra Taft Benson went on in General Conference. He gave a fantastic discourse called something like Civic Duties of Latter-day Saints. And in that discourse, you need to listen to it, because this is not in the written text of the conference report. But he, it's amazing, because he says, everybody needs to read this book. None dare call it a conspiracy. And it talks, and then he says, there was not a conspiracy theory in the Book of Mormon to overthrow the government. That was a conspiracy fact. And he says, there is a conspiracy to overthrow the government in the United States. And this book, None Dare Call It a Conspiracy, talks about that. Now, the organization that book, None Dare Call It a Conspiracy, was founded by Herbert Hoover, the first president in this series. So again, this prophecy is about secret combinations in America and their global reach. Okay, so it's first and foremost about that. Okay, so what verse did we leave off on? Okay, so we're on verse 17. There shall none after thee attain unto thy time, neither unto half thereof. So this is going back to the 22nd Amendment. No one is going to serve more than 2 terms anymore after the Franklin Delano Roosevelt's term. Now, verse 18. And then arose the third, and reigned as the other before, and appeared no more. So went it with all the residue, one after another, as that every one had reigned, and then appeared no more. Now, starting in verse 20. Then I beheld, and lo, in the process of time, the feathers that followed stood up on the right side. So we're talking about the feathers that are on the right wing of this eagle, that they might rule also. And some of them ruled, but within a while they appeared no more. So we're talking, hey, there's some short feathers that are intermingled with these 12 regular feathers that are on the right side of this eagle. And verse 21, for some of them were set up, but ruled not, meaning not that they didn't rule, but that they didn't complete their term in office. 22, and after this I looked, and behold, the 12 feathers appeared no more, nor the 2 little feathers. So now we see, okay, there were 2 little feathers that were intermingled amongst these other 12. So 14 of these feathers have now passed by. Now I want to talk a little bit about what these 2 feathers mean, and the angelic guide provided some information on this. So let's look at what he said here. And this again is coming from the subsequent chapter, 2nd Esdras 12. And whereas thou sawest the 8 small under feathers sticking to her wings, this is the interpretation, that in him there shall arise 8 kings, meaning in this country, represented by this eagle, whose time shall be but small and their years swift, meaning they should have been in office for longer, but the whore of Babylon came in and intervened and stopped their time in office, ended it prematurely. In other words, in America, presidents of the United States are put in office by the will of the people. And the whore of Babylon is ending the administration before the time allotted by the will of the people was over. So 21, and 2 of them shall perish, the middle time approaching. 4 shall be kept until their end begin to approach, but 2 shall be kept until the end. Okay, so what does this mean? There were 8 of these feathers in total. 2 of them are when the second, so if we number these in order, when short feather number 2 is removed from office, we know that the midpoint of this timeline is approaching. It's not quite yet, but we're getting there. It's almost there. It wouldn't be during the administration of the next president, because then they would have said that, but it's at the end of the second president, second short feather. Now, we understand now, because of Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the fact that there are 2 short feathers, we can put this together, okay? So you've got the first president, who's Herbert Hoover, was elected to 1 term in office. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the second feather, elected to 4 terms in office. Then you go down, you see the 5th feather as JFK. He was assassinated in office. He's the first short feather. The second short feather was Richard Nixon, okay? He was forced to resign. And it wasn't because he was doing things that other presidents weren't doing. It was because he got on the wrong side of this deep state and they forced him out. So if you look at the time that's elapsed for between the first 7 feathers, you've got 45 years. And then if you look at towards the end of Donald Trump's, that would be -2 years. So it would be 47 years from the end of Richard Nixon's administration. Now remember, it said that the midpoint approaches. So this is how these feathers are, are kind of working together. Now, let's go back to this, and we'll talk about that list in a little more detail later. Okay. So where did I leave off? Okay. And I beheld, and lo, the feathers that were under the wing thought to set up themselves and to have the rule. Um, so now we're talking about the two short feathers. They were taken away before the midpoint of the timeline. Now you're left with four short feathers that are underneath the wing, and two other feathers went up and rested right underneath the eagle's head. And Ezra's angel explained to us that these four feathers, that's going to happen near the end, or in other words, there's going to be something bad happen when you have when you have these four feathers right in a row, and then you're going to not see the last two feathers until the very end, meaning the second coming, is when those two feathers take power. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, as we go on. So the four feathers, four short feathers thought that they were going to rule. So we're down to the administration of Donald Trump. So, and in verse 25, and I beheld, and lo, the feathers that were under the wing, or these four, thought to set themselves up and to have the rule. And I beheld, and lo, there was one set up, but it shortly appeared no more. And the second was sooner away than the first. So what we're talking about here is Donald Trump's presidency ended prematurely, according to this vision. So what I am hearing from people is, hey, he was in office for 4 years. So how could that be, how could he be a short feather? If he was elected to one term in office, and he served the entire term in office. So this, if that was the case, then you're right, he wouldn't be a short feather. But remember, this vision is less about presidents and more about the intervention of the deep state, and that intervention ending certain presidents' administration before they would otherwise be completed. So when we're talking about President Trump, there has to be something more to this. So if we look back at this, and this is completely divorced from politics. This isn't a vision about Republicans and Democrats. This is a vision about the deep state intervening and removing presidents for their own personal agenda. Now, President Trump's presidency was crazy. Okay, he's the only president to ever have been impeached twice. There was the Russia collusion. So there was a special counsel that went in to study him to try to see if he somehow illegitimately obtained the presidency in the 2016 election. And there were so many different instances where people were calling for him to step down. And then we had, if you, like I, were sitting and watching the 2020 election results come in. So I'm sitting here on the East Coast. It's about 10 o'clock, and it looks like Trump has it in the bag. And then you start getting these announcements that all of these swing states are closing down their polls. And they're no longer counting. They're taking a break for some reason. And that has never happened before. And then in the morning, you wake up and Trump has lost. Miraculously, in many instances, his lead evaporated overnight. And we were left to believe that Joe Biden somehow beat President Trump. Now, just think about this. This is so bizarre. President Biden couldn't carry any of the primary states. He didn't win any of them. And then you have President Trump, who could fill football stadiums with people in his rallies, and Joe Biden couldn't. I mean, he had some rallies where there were no attendees. Um, and we are to believe that Joe Biden received more votes than any other president in the history of the United States, including Barack Obama, even when there was a seemingly complete disinterest in his campaign. And for most of his campaign, he was nowhere to be seen. But somehow, he miraculously beats Donald Trump, who received more votes himself than any other president in history. So not only that, but then you have 7 states that say, hey, we had such fraud in our states that we are sending alternate delegates to the Electoral College. Now, I appreciate the fact that this is a politically charged topic. And many people say, hey, there's no evidence for any of this. So the evidence, in my opinion, is the prophecy of Ezra's eagle. It's also when Moroni says in Ether chapter 8, hey, Gentiles, when you see these secret combinations among you in the last days, you got to wake up because your situation is terrible. This group is seeking to overthrow the freedom of all lands and nations. So is President Benson, did he get it wrong? Did Moroni get it wrong? One of the predominant things that Nephi saw in his vision, and I'm writing a book about this, and it's fascinating. I hope to be done in the next month or so. But Nephi saw that secret combinations, the Whore of Babylon, was a defining event of the last days. So that's what this vision is talking about. So it is saying that according to this prophecy, Ezra saw 2,600 years ago that there would be a country that would have 20 presidents, well, more than 20, but in this particular branch of 20, that the first of the presidents in his vision would form an organization that would go on to become the backbone of the Whore of Babylon. And that Whore of Babylon would then pluck or end the administration of certain presidents. And here we've got, to show you, according to this prophecy, you've got 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats that are yanked from office prematurely by this secret organization. So this gets us to modern times. So Trump is out, and he was out because of this secret combination. So what this means for this prophecy to be true is that had it not been for the intervention of the deep state, Trump would have won, or he should have won. The voice of the people was that he win. But because of the intervention of the Whore of Babylon, he lost it. So that's, I totally believe that is what happened, not because of any great evidence which I've seen, but I've seen some things that are fascinating. I'll post some of these in my food for thought section on my website, which is thelost10tribes.com. I invite you to go and look for some of the videos that I'll post on there that explain that, because it's fascinating, some of these things. But set those things aside. I mean, there were hundreds of people that came forward, including employees and contractors of the voting software that was used to manipulate these results according to these witnesses. And it's just, I mean, it's so bizarre. All of this is so bizarre. So you can take it and say, the reason that I am confident that this is the case is because of this prophecy itself. I mean, what is the likelihood that it lines up so perfectly And then you have all of these people coming and saying, hey, this was stolen. There was all this fraud. I saw this, that, and the other thing. And this one, semi-truck driver said that he had 400,000 ballots that he drove to Pennsylvania from New York. And then his trailer was stolen. He doesn't know where any of those things were. And he had signed affidavits, and nobody wanted to listen to any of this stuff. So it's, you have to say, okay, is this a political thing, or is this what Ezra saw happen? And I believe that this is what Ezra saw happen. So now we have three short feathers that we've seen. JFK was assassinated. Richard Nixon was removed. He was forced to resign. And President Trump had the election stolen. Three different feathers, all three of them removed in unique ways. So now this prophecy talks about the next feather, and it says that this feather is away even faster than Trump. So what we're to understand is that Biden will be removed from office. But the manner in which this happens is really interesting. And this is where I think that this is the event that this prophecy is counting down to, because of the wording of what Ezra says happens here. So let me just read this to you, and then we'll kind of talk about it. So, so in verse 27, and the second was away sooner than the first. So Biden's away faster than Trump was. So Biden's gone within 4 years. And then I beheld, and lo, the two that remained thought also in themselves to reign. And when they so thought, behold, there awakened one of the heads that was at rest. Namely, it was in the midst, or the middle head, for it was greater than the other two heads. And then I saw that the two other heads were joined with it. And behold, the head was turned with them that were with it, and did eat up the two feathers under its wing that would have reigned. But this head put the whole earth in fear, and bare rule over all those that dwelt upon the earth with much oppression. And it had the governance of the world more than all the wings that had been. Okay, so this is really, really interesting, because it says that after Biden, the presidential line of succession doesn't happen. So Kamala Harris never becomes president, even when Biden is pulled out. And the person in line after her doesn't attain the presidency either, even though they would love to. They are removed by the eagle heads. So what this means is that the Whore of Babylon has an agenda all of their own. And Biden apparently is not part of it. They've got something more planned. Now, keep in mind that it says that this eagle head, it rules the world with more oppression and with more power and authority than any other president before this time. So this is exactly what the Whore of Babylon is trying to do. According to Moroni, this secret combination is seeking to overthrow all nations, lands, and people. That's what Ezra Taft Benson saw, that there's a secret organization gaining power in America that is seeking to overthrow all countries. And that's the event that removes President Biden from office. So what could happen that would remove President Biden and the successors, and that would then give power to this eagle head? Well, that is going to be something, because anytime a president is removed from office, the vice president is sworn in almost immediately. I mean, we're talking within moments. So the fact that Kamala Harris does not become president means something devastating happens. And this is, me talking, obviously hindsight is 2020. And so the only way we're really going to see how this all plays out is looking at this in the rearview mirror. But what I believe this is talking about is an event that kicks off a continuity of governance. Now, what that means is in the event that the government of the United States is somehow impaired, and this program was initially created in the event that Washington, D.C. was taken out with a nuclear weapon, that the governance of the United States of America would fall on a secondary group. And this secondary group would then be in charge of reforming a constitution-based government. So this is what I believe that the three eagle heads represent. I believe the three eagle heads represent individuals. They, as we go on in this prophecy, we learn that the eagle heads, the first of the eagle heads, dies in his bed with great pain, and that the second eagle head is killed by the third. So we're not talking about government agencies. We're not talking about other world organizations here. We're talking about human beings that are leading this country. So now let's pick this back up. We left off in 34, where, we left off in 32, with the big eagle head reigning over the earth with more power and authority than anyone that's ever come before. Then verse 33, and after this I beheld, and lo, the head that was in the midst suddenly appeared no more, like as the wings. And in the next chapter, we learn that this man dies in his bed with great pain. And then in 34, but there remained the two heads, which also in like sort ruled upon the earth and over those that dwelt therein. And I beheld, and lo, the head upon the right side devoured that was upon the left side. So one of these eagle heads kills the other one so that they can have power. Now, this is where the visions of Daniel come in, because Daniel talks about these guys. And he goes into detail about them. The large eagle head, he says that the first thing he does is he goes to war in the Middle East. And then he goes to war against the islands of the sea, and he just dominates. But there's a stigma associated with his reign. The American people know that something's wrong. He came to power in ways that nobody feels comfortable with. And then he goes to war and he wreaks havoc. Imagine what this guy can do. If you're having an event that can eliminate the government of the United States, say the detonation of a nuclear weapon in Washington, D.C., what couldn't this guy do with his righteous indignation? No nation would be able to stop this guy. And no nation does, because he reigns over the earth with more power and authority than anyone that's ever reigned. And then Daniel says that this man dies. He dies while he's still at war. And the second eagle head, according to Daniel, then decides, hey, we're ending this war. Says that the reproach of the kingdom ends in that man, and he returns back. And as soon as he returns back, he wants to rebuild his nation. And he returns back, and then he's gone. He dies. He's killed. And then the third man takes power, and Daniel says that he raises taxes for the glory of the kingdom, and then he's gone in days, according to Daniel. So this is what happens to these three eagle heads. They're gone in quick succession. Now let's return to this vision here. In verse 36. So all three eagle heads are now gone. So if all three eagle heads are gone, now we're to the two remaining feathers that were under the eagle head that were remained for the very last. Okay. And these two eagle heads, these two feathers that were under the eagle head, are now confronted by something. And we read about this in verse 36 and 37. Then I heard a voice which said unto me, look before thee, and consider the thing that thou seest. And I beheld, and lo, as it were a roaring lion chased out of the wood. And I saw that he sent out a man's voice unto the eagle, and said, hear thou, I will talk with thee, And the highest shall say unto thee, art not thou it that remainest of the four beasts, whom I made to reign in my world, that the end of their times may come through them? So we're talking the fourth beast that Daniel saw. Remember, this whole Ezra's eagle was given to supplement Daniel's vision. So now let's continue here in verse 40. So verse 40 says, and the fourth came and overcame all beasts that were past, and had power over the world with great fearfulness. Now we're talking about this fourth beast under the administration of these last two feathers. Okay. Now, under the administration of these last two feathers, it has power over the whole world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression. And so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. For the earth hast thou not judged with truth. This is the lion talking to these last two short feathers, saying, hey, you're a liar. You're deceiving the entire world. For thou hast afflicted the meek. Thou hast hurt the peaceable. Thou hast loved liars, and destroyed the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit, and hast cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm. Now, we're talking about the Antichrist, what the Antichrist will do in America. Daniel teaches us that the Antichrist will overcome the saints, that he will have power over the saints, and that he will have power over the entire earth, that he will reign first from America. Therefore is thy wrongful dealing come up unto the highest, and thy pride unto the mighty. The highest also hath looked upon the proud times, and behold, they are ended, and his abominations are fulfilled. And therefore appear no more, thou eagle, nor thy horrible wings, nor thy wicked feathers, nor thy malicious heads, nor thy hurtful claws, nor all thy vain body, that all the earth may be refreshed and may return, being delivered from thy violence, that she may hope for the judgment and mercy of him that made her. And it came to pass, while the lion spake these words unto the eagle, I saw, and behold, the head that remained and the four wings appeared no more. And the two went up unto it and set themselves up to reign, and their kingdom was small and filled with uproar. So this is the administration of the Antichrist in America. And I saw and beheld, they appeared no more, and the whole body of the eagle was burned, so that the earth was in great fear. Then I awaked, and out of the trouble and trance of my mind, and from great fear, and said unto my spirit, and this is where he goes and talks to the angel and says, what does all this mean? You're showing me the events of the last days. Tell me what it means. So let me reiterate that I understood this vision of Ezra's eagle only after I understood the covenants that the Lord has made with the house of Israel. Once I understood what those covenants were and how they would be fulfilled in the last days, I understood this vision. Now I want to talk about this lion, okay, because it's very significant, and it's a symbol of the restoration of the house of Israel. Now, listen to this prophecy. I told you that we'd get back to Joseph Smith's prophecy, and this is going to get us to the lion here. This people, the house of Israel, will be the staff upon which the nation, meaning the United States, shall lean, and they shall bear the Constitution away from the very verge of destruction. Then shall the Lord say, go tell my servants, who are the strength of my house, my young men and my middle-aged, etc., come to the land of my vineyard. Okay, so think about that. He's saying, come to the land of my vineyard. They're not in the vineyard. He's telling them to come and fight the battle of the Lord. Okay, so this lion is coming from somewhere else. Then the kings and queens shall come. Yea, the foreign saints shall come to fight for the land of my vineyard. For in this thing shall be their safety, meaning the house of Israel's safety will be in these foreign saints that come. And their enemies will have no power to choose, but will run as a man fleeth from a sudden destruction. So this lion confronted the Antichrist and the beast who was with him. Those are the last two feathers. And when the lion comes, they flee for their lives. I know these things by the visions of the Almighty. So you can look up this reference. So Joseph Smith was saying that the Constitution of the United States would be preserved because foreign saints would come to the land of the Lord's vineyard and save it. Now, I want to read another um, thing to you. This is from the Doctrine and Covenants, and it talks about the Lord's vineyard and about these foreign saints that are coming. Now, listen to this. And the Lord of the vineyard said unto one of his servants, Go and gather together the residue of my servants and take all the strength of mine house. So these servants that we're going to go get, they are powerful, which are my warriors. Okay, these guys, they're incredibly powerful. Because of who they are, no one's going to be able to stop them. So go get my warriors, my young men, and they that are of middle age, also among all my servants, who are the strength of my house, save those only who I have appointed to tarry. So the Lord has servants whose time isn't come yet. He doesn't say who they are, but he says the only ones that are coming at this point are warriors. So these foreign warriors are coming to redeem the Lord's vineyard. And go ye straightway into the land of my vineyard and redeem my vineyard, for it is mine, and I have bought it with money. Therefore, get ye straightway unto my land, meaning America. Break down the walls of mine enemies. This is the secret combinations, the whore of Babylon. This is the Antichrist and the beast. Throw down their tower and scatter their watchmen. And inasmuch as they shall gather against you, avenge me of mine enemies, the stout horn, the Antichrist, the false prophet, and his forces, that by and by I may come with the residue of mine house and possess the land. Doctrine and Covenants 101, 55 through 58. What we're talking about here is the restoration of the house of Israel, which, according to the scriptures, will be more incredible, more miraculous than the exodus of Egypt. We're not talking about foreign saints from Mexico coming up. We're not talking about foreign saints from Canada coming down, or foreign saints from Europe coming over here. They need to be far more powerful than that, okay, to be able to overcome the most powerful country on the face of the planet. Okay, now I'm going to read these verses from Isaiah chapter 13, and I'm going to start in verse 2. Lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand, that they may go into the gate of the nobles. I have commanded my sanctified ones. I have also called my mighty ones. These, we're talking about the Lord's warriors. They're coming to redeem the vineyard. For my anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. The multitude, or the noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustereth the host to the battle. So this host that is coming is massive. It sounds like the noise of the multitude of nations coming. Now listen to from where this group comes, according to Isaiah in verse 5. They come from a far country, they're foreign saints, from the end of heaven, even the Lord and the weapons of his indignation, to destroy the whole land. Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt, and they shall be afraid. Pangs of sorrow shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travaileth. They shall be amazed one at another. Their faces shall be as flames. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners out of it. This incredible host that's coming to the earth from the ends of heaven will destroy the wicked out of the Lord's vineyard. This is some incredible stuff, okay? This is the lion that's going to come and redeem America. Now, I have another scripture I'd like to share with you. Now, this one is coming from the 5th chapter of Mormon. Now, the 5th chapter of Mormon is right before Mormon chapter 6, of course, but in Mormon chapter 6, that's when the Nephites get destroyed. And the Lamanites come and entirely wipe them out. There's only 24 people left at the end of that battle. Now, right before Mormon describes that, he says this to us. And then, O ye Gentiles, how can ye stand before the power of God, except ye shall repent and turn from your evil ways? Know ye not that ye are in the hands of God? Know ye not that he hath all power, and at his great command the earth shall be rolled together as a scroll? Therefore repent ye, and humble yourselves before him, lest he shall come out in justice against you, lest a remnant of the seed of Jacob shall go forth among you as a lion, and tear you in pieces, and there is none to deliver. This lion that Mormon saw would come and tear the wicked apart amongst the Gentiles in the last days, this is this lion that confronted the Antichrist in America. Now, there's another scripture that I want to share with you also. This one comes from Joseph Smith History. We read this one recently as we were studying this year church history. 37. This is Moroni comes to Joseph Smith and repeats the same message 5 times in a 24-hour period. And he quotes this scripture, which is about the great and dreadful day of the Lord, but he says something very interesting in it. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven. For all the proud, yea, all that do wickedly shall burn as stubble. For they that come from the ends of heaven shall burn them, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. We are in for some incredible days ahead. Do I believe the prophecy of Ezra's eagle? Absolutely. It's unfolding right before our eyes. I get very sad and overwhelmed when I think about what this vision of Ezra's eagle means, and that the whore of Babylon is in control in America. But the Lord saw that this was going to happen and prepared the way for our deliverance. And that deliverance is going to come through a miraculous way that we're not looking for. And it's going to knock our socks off, and we better get prepared for it. We better understand these things. If you would like to learn more about this, I encourage you to read my books. I'm working on my 4th book now. It's totally awesome, but you can listen to A Remnant Shall Return. You can listen to it on Spotify, anywhere podcasts are, for free. Get familiar with what this stuff is about, or you can go to my website, thelost10tribes.com, and you can order a hard copy. By the way, hard copy does not mean hardback. It means not an electronic copy. So you can order a paperback physical copy. You can order audio versions of it as well, of all of my books from that website. But there's something else that I wanted to talk about. And this is just kind of a little addendum to this presentation. And it's about something really interesting that I saw, and as I'm thinking about why is this lining up this way, it has to do with we've heard about Ohio being the bellwether state, meaning that how Ohio votes, so votes the nation for presidents, and they have an incredible track record. And I want to show you that track record, and their track record. There's only been 3 times that they've missed who became the president, but those 3 times are very significant to what we're talking about today. And as I was thinking about it, I was just thinking, why? Why Ohio? Why does Ohio matter? And if you've heard of the Heartland model, there's 2 groups. Regarding Book of Mormon geography, right? There's a group that believes that the events of the Book of Mormon took place in America, and there's another group that believe that it took place in Central America. I'm not advocating either one. But if you believe the Heartland model, they attribute the Nephites to the group that's known as the Hopewell civilization. You can see this fort that they call it the Hanukkah mound, but it looks like an old Israeli oil lamp with a Hanukkah candelabra built within it. this was built in Ohio. Uh, Thomas Jefferson had it surveyed by the Army of Engineers because he was so fascinated with it. But you can see this map of Ohio, all those little red dots, those are all Hopewell civilizations, mound works like the one that you see on the right of the screen. Um, the Hopewell civilization was centered in Ohio. Now, if the Hopewell civilization was the Nephite nation, it means that the Nephite nation was centered in Ohio. You look at all of those um, sites that they have discovered in Ohio, and it's an incredible. And if you haven't looked into this, you should. I mean, they've recovered Hebrew glyphs. I mean, the Newark holy stones are fascinating to look up. But the reason that I say this is I believe that the Book of Mormon is the template for our days, and the Nephite government was overthrown. And if the Nephite government was in North America, it likely would have been in Ohio, since it would have been centered where in the middle of the Hopewell civilization. So think about that in conjunction with this. So these are the 16 feathers up to our current day on the left side of the screen. And on the right side of the screen is how Ohio has voted during each and every one of the elections that pertained to the same time period. So the first election on this screen for Ohio is when Herbert Hoover was elected. The next four were for Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Now, look at this. Ohio did not vote for Franklin Delano Roosevelt for his fourth term. The other time they didn't vote for the president who became the president was when the election was between JFK and Richard Nixon. And then the only other time that this anomaly happened was with Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Ezra's eagle highlights in amongst these feathers that we know can put names to them. He highlights 5 of them. The second one he highlights as serving twice as long as anyone else. And then the other ones that are highlighted are the short feathers. And the only time that Ohio didn't match the actual president that became the president had to do with these same individuals that are highlighted in Ezra's Eagle. So one way that you could look at this is that Ohio's got a pretty good track record of voting for the right president, but has missed it 3 times. Or you can say that Ohio is a bellwether for Ezra's Eagle, and it has been 100% accurate for leaders that were significant to this prophecy. I thought that was just kind of an interesting thing that came out to me. Could this be, could it be that the Heartland model, the old Nephite nation whispering from the dust to us about what's about to happen to our nation? I don't know, but it's interesting. I find this fascinating. Well, that's what I had to share with you today. I know that there's been lots of people with lots of questions about this, but I hope that this has been beneficial to you. And if you'd like more information, go to my website, thelostинtribes.com. Check out some of the books that I've written. I hope to have another book out that I'm very excited about within the next month or so. But until then, God bless.